Hey, everybody. Welcome to HerPath, the podcast for busy women looking for purpose, health, and happiness. So, today I'm very excited to talk about the topic of over drinking. It's going to be a interesting discussion to see how it's affected or anybody that you love that has been affected by maybe drinking a little more than they intended to. So, even the word over drinking kind of just like intrigued me a little bit. I'm going to share my story. I'm going to try to keep it um, brief. Um, my drinking career started like most people, right in their, well, maybe not most people, but for me, it was in my late teens, kind of partying on the weekends, getting together with my friends, and that, went to college, same thing, partied on the weekends. And eventually, what I found is that I was using drinking to cope with my emotional life. And what happened for me after I realized what had happened, I had this habit, like I could not change it. And I was really worried. I was an alcoholic and I didn't want to go to AA. I didn't want to stop drinking forever. I didn't want to admit I had a problem, but I didn't know what to do. And so I kept drinking to to deal with my emotions. And eventually, what happened is I stumbled upon our now mentor and teacher, Brooke Castillo, and her over drinking program. And just the concept of over drinking, I just kind of like blew my mind a little bit because when I was drinking, what happened was I was just drinking just a little, after work, like Abby had said the other podcast ago, of just, relaxing after work. And what happened was my body just built a tolerance, and I found that I needed more and more to get that same feeling. And I was scared and I was Googling, am I an alcoholic? And for any of you that have had that experience and have Googled that question, the answer is quite frustrating, because the answer is only you can decide if you're an alcoholic, right? And that's like, well, then I'm not, right? But then there's no other answers. There's no other like, solutions out there for this problem until now, until the over drinking problem, right? And what I've come to learn is there's a spectrum within the drinking and over drinking. And you can place, like, we're going to talk about over drinking and alcohol specifically this episode, just because of the way, it affects your brain. And, we get some medical advice from Dr. Gabby on, what chemical processes happen in the brain with alcohol, but put overeating, overspending, over sexting, over shopping, over porning, whatever it is, over gaming, over social media-ing, overworking. There's a process that happens in your brain that is just natural, and it's going to happen, and there's nothing wrong with your brain. But once you learn that, you're able to kind of take the stigma of there's something wrong with me and actually do something about it and make change in a positive way. That it feels like this thing that has control over you, you finally get in control of, and you have power, right? You are in control of it instead of it controlling you. It's a process, though. And so, anyway, I just wanted to kind of share my story, kind of like my revelation. It kind of moves a little further down, but I think I'll share that, maybe on another podcast, because I feel like I've been talking enough already. But I have more experience in the drinking world as well. And so, but I'd like to open it up to you all to see if you've had any experiencing in your life, like over desiring something that you wanted to stop, but you felt you couldn't, whether it be alcohol or not. How about you, Nancy?
Well, I'm just thinking about the alcohol, and I always wished I could drink more, which is kind of funny because I would see people drink and they'd be like having a good time and hooting and hollering, and I'm kind of an introvert. Except when I drink, I fall asleep, so I'm not like that fun of a drinker. So I always wanted to be able to drink more, and yet I couldn't.
Wow, that I find that a blessing, Nancy.
Yeah, I guess.
That's a blessing.
Yeah.
I remember having some friends in high school that couldn't drink either, and I felt so sorry for them. And I remember being like trying to coach them, like, okay, we can do this. Like, let's see what kind, maybe it's just the type of alcohol, and we would like try different things.
I know someone said you need a Red Bull and vodka. I'm like, oh my gosh, it just sounds like fire.
Sounds like a bad idea.
I have some friends that don't drink for they just don't like alcohol. They don't like the way it makes them feel, or for religious reasons. And some of those friends are the most fun people.
Mhm.
Like I would never even, I would assume that they were already like shit-faced in some situations. It's like, you don't drink any alcohol and you are normally this outgoing and loud and crazy. Like, oh my God, that I couldn't believe it. I'm like, how could you? Because I feel like in social situations, that's where I'm more likely to have a couple of drinks and to kind of help just loosen things up, help loosen up that frontal lobe. And because I feel like I am naturally introverted too. I kind of, keep to myself a little bit more in social situations. So in college was when I most started to drink. I think it's kind of like a rite of passage, at least where I went to school and some of the parties that I went to. Um, and and so I started to associate it with having fun at a party is alcohol. If you're going to go to a party, you're going to have fun. Kind of I related it. That's the only way I'm going to have fun is if I have a couple of drinks. Um, and there were lots of instances in college where I overdrank and I don't remember the way the night ended. Um, and so that was my, introduction to, there was a party I went to. I went to, I was pre-med and undergraduate, and I went to a party with some medical students. And it was like right off the bat, we got there with music and dancing, and then it was like, "Oh, Gabby, you want to go to med school?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." They're like, "Well, you got to down this," and they gave me like a Corona. It was called, I think they called it a Corona Crusher. It was like a Corona beer, the neck filled up with vodka or something. And at that time, I hadn't really drank anything, so I downed like two of those. I have memories of rolling around on the floor, laughing, and then, wake up the next day with like vomit on my shirt. And that was not ideal. But that was kind of like my college experience. It was binge drinking, drinking to the
Mhm.
point of like unconsciousness. And in the moment, it sounds like fun because it seems like that's what a lot of people did. And, it was okay, we know now looking back, think about those instances of people overdoing it and dying from that, or, having developing a chronic, like you said, dependence on it, where you feel like they need it every day to function. But it's kind of scary to think about the situations I could have been in at that point. Or maybe some things I don't even remember happened that are blocked from my memory because I was too drunk to remember. That was my college experience. And then once out of college, then that just kind of went away. Didn't really I didn't really drink anymore until probably because then after that came, getting married, having kids, and I went to med school with children, so there was no time for partying, there was no time for drinking, there was no time for any of that. So I really didn't drink during that time. And then now as a working adult, I do enjoy a drink here and there at parties or socializing, um, or maybe after work on occasion, but not to the point like it was when I was in college and having those crazy binge drinking episodes.
But I
I
think
still
you're
enjoy
right.
a
Like,
cocktail here and there, yeah.
yeah, I think it just like it is or considered a rite of passage, at
Mhm.
least here in the West. And like that it's an expectation and how, how frightening that is and how what can we do as a society to maybe like change that
Well, there's already
expectation that
rules.
we're
Like
going to
that wasn't
pitch.
allowed. It wasn't allowed to have alcohol in the dorms. It
Yeah.
wasn't allowed. So we found a way around it,
Yeah, it doesn't
And we were
matter that there's
underage. We
rules
had
or that
someone
it's,
fighting
yeah,
for us. So there
right.
were rules in place, but where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah,
So
no, I'm not,
yeah.
not thinking like more rules, but like as like a culture and like can we start to shift, like in our mind, like what is considered normal
Right.
and
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
how
And
are they
I had lots of
expected?
friends who didn't do that, but I also had lots of friends who had similar experiences and we like bonded over it. We're lifelong friends now. And And we have alcoholism in our family. Like both my husband and I have our fathers were both alcoholics. And maybe that was kind of like maybe that was a predisposition to it, maybe that it was kind of normalized the drinking experience for us at that point. But we both have both of our fathers died from complications, poor health from alcoholism.
Yeah.
And so, but
It's
I didn't make that
addictive.
connection when I was a kiddo, when I
Yeah.
was a teenager. I didn't really think about it that. Now my kids, because they know of our experiences and they're teenagers right now, they're not interested in it at all. So they have a completely different view of alcohol than my husband and I did going through college. So I don't know if it's a generational thing or just the people that they associate with, but they have a definite different idea of alcohol and drinking, and they're not really interested in it at all.
Hmm. Hmm.
You know, I come from kind of the opposite. We don't really have any heavy drinking in our family, either, either sides of our family. You know, my husband is Italian and, there's always wine on the table and that kind of stuff. But my family hardly drinks at all. So I had a serious, a pretty similar college experience as Gabby. It was like a rite of passage, and there were some nights where you didn't really remember the next morning, things like that. Um, and that continued for me after college because a bunch of my college friends and I rented this big house or in the West End of Hartford, and it became like the party house, right? So it was like the continuation of college for a couple of years. What I have found now, though, is that I don't drink now because of my health. And I feel so much better now that I just don't drink any alcohol. And it's a relief to me. I never, you drank because that was the thing to do. And that was how you got your high or your happiness or your goofiness or whatever you wanted it to be. But I always hated the taste of it. I never found an alcohol that I actually enjoyed. So for me, it's a relief. But what's funny now is, I'm 52 and I still have friends who just cannot even fathom that I can't have a drink. Like they just cannot even how do you live? How do you deal? What do you mean? You mean you can never have a drink? How about in like 2 months? Can you have a drink? Like the peer pressure stays on and it's kind of funny, right? That that it's so against the cultural norm.
Hmm.
And that's been the most surprising thing to me.
Sometimes
I
I get surprised if I go to a function, like an adult function, and there's no alcohol. It's like, what kind of sham party is this? What kind of
I used
people?
to not go when I was a drinker. Like, no, I'm not going. No alcohol, no me.
Or bring my own just in case in the trunk of the car, like just in case there isn't anything there,
Well,
because it's a
tailgate, yes.
dirty party and I need a little drink to kind of loosen up.
Ah,
I do that sometimes. And I don't know, it's fine for me. I don't have a problem, with it for me, but
Mhm.
yeah, there are people who have fun without alcohol, people who feel much better without it and don't have any regrets the next day without alcohol. No headaches, no heartburn, no palpitations, you know, uh, no amnesia.
No
All of that
amnesia. Yeah.
is wonderful. And then now with all of this, coming out with the new increased risk of cancers for people who over drink or who drink regularly, I mean, there's a lot of health reasons, there's a lot of personal reasons, social reasons. And I love what you said, Beth, is that it's individual to what you want for you. You know, maybe it's not a problem for you. And if it is a problem for you, then you can definitely do something about it if you choose to.
Right. Yeah. Maybe you just need the right resources, the right person,
Hmm.
the right person to help mentor you and guide you or resources multiple, right? Um, and yeah, I think too, what happens, well, and I wanted to ask you, Gabby, if you know, and because I read it's been a few months now, so it's not, in my forefront. But what is considered normal drinking? And I feel like it's maybe 2 or 3 drinks a week for a woman and 4 to 5 or 6 for a man. But no more than 2 drinks at a time for a woman
Mhm.
and no more than 3 drinks at a time for a man.
So it depends on who you listen to and what
Okay.
guidelines you're looking at. But
Okay.
in general, like I am family medicine, so I look at the family medicine, American Academy of Family Medicine, and the United States Preventive Health Force task force. And a normal size drink is considered to be like a 2 ounce spirit. So the spirits are like, whiskey, vodka, tequila, like that kind of thing. 2 ounces of that. Or like a 12-ounce beer is considered a normal size drink. Or like a 4-ounce glass of wine. That's considered a normal size. Because I have asked people, how much do you drink? Like, oh, 1 glass of wine a night. But you can fit a whole freaking wine bottle in that wine glass that they're drinking. So that is not one drink, my friend. That
Yeah.
is a bottle of wine. So,
And
anyways,
how
those are
many drinks is a bottle of wine?
so it's usually about four,
So four
four
drinks
to
at a time.
five.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. For
So
those of
those
us that found ourselves finishing off a bottle of wine every night and we were worried, well,
that's about
we
five.
were worried for a
So
reason
those
because
guidelines
it's
say for
double
people
of what
who
we should
drink
have been drinking.
people who drink like nightly with dinner, let's say somebody who drinks nightly, for men it's two a night on the regular, and for less than two a night, and for women it's or a day. For women it's less than one a day. If it's someone who has some wine or a little spirit, with dinner or after work. And then for social situations, like for someone who just sporadically drinks socially, it's less than three an hour or less than one an hour, sorry, less than one an hour over 3 hours for women, and less than one an hour over 4 hours for men. So men, because of their metabolism, their muscle makeup, what have you, can tolerate a little bit more alcohol on the regular, and women less, almost half as much on the regular. So that is according to the guidelines, that is safe and acceptable for someone who does drink regularly. Now, the lifestyle medicine or a lot of other, think it's zero. That zero is acceptable, zero alcohol because of all of the risks. But for socially, that's two a night for men, one a night for women, or less than four in a row over an hour each for men, less than one, less than three an hour apart a night for women is considered, acceptable. But um, we all know
That
there's not really any benefit to alcohol, any nutritional benefit. We know there isn't any, it doesn't add anything unless it's something that you just enjoy. It's like your treat. It's like something that you like the way it tastes, or you like, how it feels to drink it. But there really
Well,
aren't
that's,
any,
yeah, I mean,
real
that's what I'm going
benefits
to
to it.
bring in here is sure there are a lot of, negative things, right? We live in a world of opposites, positive and negative. And so
Yeah.
everything, alcohol really is, it's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing. It's a neutral thing. But depending on, what you think about it and how you choose to, have a relationship with it is what makes it, good or bad. But what it does, no matter what we think about it, is it does release a significant amount of feel-good hormone in our body called dopamine. And for those of us that are predispositioned to alcoholism or substance use disorder, or on this gray area spectrum that I actually didn't talk about, that's okay. That break people that have that tendency towards drinking too much, being an alcoholic, they get more than a normal person gets from when a normal person drinks. They get a dopamine hit, but when a person that's their brain is wired differently, they get it like 100 times more. And so that's why it feels so hard to give up something because your brain is feels like that is the only thing in the world that it needs to survive. And so it's going to constantly crave that and bring thoughts into your mind of how to get it and when to get it. And eventually, if you're on that spectrum of finding yourself you're over drinking and you're finding yourself like avoiding social situations or events or things like that because there is no drinking, um, and you would like to change that, I just want you to know that that's absolutely possible and there's hope and there's no reason to be hiding and shameful because there's nothing wrong with you. Your brain is just acting normally. You just need to know how to change it if you want. So yeah, I
I
just want to,
I
yeah.
saw an interesting quote by Dr. George Koob. So he's the director of the National Institute on Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism. And it's similar to what you're saying. He says that alcohol changes the brain, making it harder to stop once a pattern of over drinking is established. But your brain can also heal. So cutting back even a little improves your sleep, improves your mood, and improves your overall health. And I found that quote really hopeful, that you don't have to, for people that have huge addictions, right? You don't have to go cold turkey, right? You can start by making little changes and you can rewire your brain and you can heal your brain. I loved the term that he used, your brain can heal.
And
Um,
heal. I
yeah,
love that. That is so true. It is so true. And like you said, and going, you don't have to do it all at once. Jump in with both feet.
right.
It's the small, gradual, consistent changes over time is what is going to give you, right, get you where you want to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
And
love that.
yeah, and trying to tackle it all at once. For some people, they absolutely do much better with abstaining. I mean,
Mhm.
there are some people, and with anything that they can't do moderation, or they are just not successful with moderation. They're not. Then there are some people that are just not built for moderation and cannot just have a glass of wine here and there, and are do so much better when they completely abstain. But there are other people who can totally do moderation and can totally decrease little by little over time to their desired goal. And so comparing ourselves to how other people are sometimes can be not so helpful. So when you think of somebody else who's just done something cold turkey and think there's something wrong with you because you can't go cold turkey is not fair. It's not fair to you. Um, some
Yeah,
people can totally do cold turkey and just stop on a whim and never think
yeah,
about it again. And
right.
most people are not like that though.
No, no. And in fact, I mean, alcohol is one of the, few addictive substances, legally that can be life threatening if you do go cold turkey, if your body is
Oh
dependent on it.
yeah, you
So
can
you
have
may
this.
not
Yeah.
want to, right? And
Right.
they're even if, for those folks that find like I can't because my body is dependent, there's absolutely a way for you to taper down and decrease your tolerance, your body's
Yeah.
tolerance. It's
And those
absolutely
people should
doable.
definitely talk with their healthcare provider if you feel like you are one of those people that, are daily consistently drinking. And if you don't drink, you physically get sick, the palpitations, the shaking, withdrawal symptoms, your doctor can totally help you through that. Or a addiction specialist can really help you manage that situation if you find yourself there.
Mhm.
There are ways to do that safely.
Absolutely. Yeah. Where you don't have to check yourself into a
Of-
treatment center or the hospital or a detox place. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a really great book called Dopamine Nation. Have any of you heard of that book?
I did. I think I did read that book. I have it.
Yeah.
I can put it on my bedside right now. I read it a few like last year sometime.
Yeah, really, really good. Dr. Anna Lemke, she's a
Hmm.
psychiatrist and an addiction expert. But she, to get back to your point about dopamine, right? She writes about, that we're constantly bombarded with dopamine with that need for high dopamine rewards. And it can be alcohol for sure, but it can be social media, it can be sugar, it can be all those other things. And I think what we're talking about today, what's so powerful is that yes, it is about over drinking, but it can be whatever that dopamine vice is that you have, right? The more we consume it, the more we crave it, and it creates a vicious cycle. Um, I love that it can go beyond over drinking as well. But
Yeah.
I read that book a while ago and it was really, really pretty good. Dopamine Nation.
Dopamine Nation. I love that. Do you think you could drop that in the show notes?
Yes, absolutely.
Great. Thanks. Nancy, any thoughts for you
Thinking about what
on
Debbie said about the heart palpitations, because the taste, I love a good margarita. Oh my gosh. But what I realized is after I drink them, I'd get bad heart palpitations. And I think it was the high fructose corn syrup
Mhm.
in the margarita that made it happen. And the other thing is, I've noticed when I've gone overseas to Portugal and I've drank their wine, I just don't nearly get the symptoms, like the hangover symptoms. So I think there's something about maybe the wine we're getting, maybe sulfites or something.
I
Yeah,
totally
the
agree with you because there are
type
certain, so I love margaritas too. I love tequila and mezcal, but the cleaner versions that have less preservatives, that are more natural, if you want to call it natural or organic or what have you, but the less preservatives, the more natural. I mean, the distillation processes are, basically aligned with the traditional processes of producing that type of alcohol. And mixers that are more natural, less sugary. For me, I tolerate that much, much better and actually enjoy it better with less side effects afterwards. So it's funny that you brought that up because I think there is also the type of if you're someone like me who enjoys to have a cocktail here and there on the weekends or at parties, that the quality does make a difference too. Like a good quality drink that's for me low in sugar, but also a good with less preservatives tends to have less. I tend not to have as many side effects.
Right. Because that was really annoying for me getting the banging the heart rate out.
Yeah, well, I'm curious, Gabby, kind of my last question before we wrap up this conversation. It's been really great. Thank you, ladies. I have noticed a lot of women that are perimenopause or going through menopause that when they drink, that it wakes them up at night. And do you happen to know like what is going on physiologically in our body that it seems like women cannot tolerate alcohol when they're looking for something to make them feel better. And
Yeah,
that very thing that makes them feel better for a little bit makes them feel worse. And, all you can't sleep and more
that's
hot
totally
flashes,
true.
things like
Yes.
that.
And I find that
Yeah.
with myself too. So that's why I've had to cut back so much more over time because now that I'm perimenopausal also. So it's true because our metabolism, our hormonal balance, first of all, shifts over time. Our muscle mass shifts over time. Our and those hormones affect our metabolism, not literally when you think about calorie burning metabolism, but the way our liver functions, the way our organs function, all of those things are ruled by our hormonal balance. And your liver is an important, and your muscle mass is an important, are important organs in metabolizing alcohol and getting rid of those toxins out of your body. So you have less ability to clear that out over time. And so while you're sleeping, that stress that it puts on your body, you get restless sleep. So people think that it helps me sleep better and I sleep more. It's actually the opposite. You find yourself more tired the next day, even though you may have slept through the night because it's not restful sleep. Also, you can feel those palpitations because your body is just more challenged with being able to clear out those toxins from your body.
That makes
Um,
sense.
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
a
yeah,
little bit more
yeah,
headachy, a little bit more
yeah.
bloating. Also, your gut bacteria. I mean, alcohol affects your gut balance, and some people don't realize that it can even paralyze and stunt. Like if you really are a heavy drinker, like it can really stunt your digestion. So it makes a big problem with your digestion. So as we age, we don't tolerate it as good, unfortunately. So if it's a problem, then kind of figuring out a way to lessen it That you swap it with mocktails would be probably more helpful.
Thank you, Dr. Gabby, and thank you, ladies, for listening today, or for your thoughts and sharing and listening. Our listeners, if you found this helpful, please do like, share, and subscribe to this podcast. And if you'd like some more information, I will be dropping my website down below, drinklessfeelbetter.com, if you're interested in learning more about the over drinking and how I may help you drink less so you feel better. You can check me out there. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, one more thing before we leave. This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. We are certified professional coaches, but this broadcast is not a substitute for medical or psychological advice. Okay, thanks for listening. See you next week.